I always like that warning in case you say something that you shouldn't be saying. So
Exactly. Everyone gets the heads up.
the hot mic episode or whatever they call it. So as everybody's coming in to the room, I always like that where you see it like all of a sudden they're popping in and all that stuff. Ari Rosenbaum here with the second day of that 401k National Virtual Conference. If you go to YouTube, you could see yesterday's event already up on YouTube, posted on LinkedIn and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to get the show going with Shauna Ohm, Content 151. Always great to see her. Big Chicago sports fan. We were talking about the Cubs and my always need to get back to Wrigley, which is still my second favorite stadium of all time. We ran that event in 2018 with Andre Dawson. Hope to eventually run it back again. We'll see what's happening. Shauna, take it away.
Love Andre Dawson. Good reference to start the day with. So as Ari mentioned, I'm with Content 151. I do content marketing for the financial services industry with a focus on advisors. And I always love a chance to talk at conferences like this about marketing because I've noticed that marketing can feel really overwhelming. I don't know how many of you feel like you have no idea where to start or what to focus on because there's so much noise out there about what to do, how to market yourself. So I love to take opportunities like this to kind of simplify everything for you. So I titled this presentation, What to Embrace and What to Ignore, Your Guide to Marketing. And this kind of sums this up. Like, how many of you have heard, you know, you should be on TikTok or you should be on all social platforms or are hearing jargon from marketing experts like what are your KPIs or your CTRs or omnichannel marketing is one of my favorites, or you need to make sure that you're retargeting everything or snackable content. And all of these things are great and they matter, but they're not necessarily relevant to you or what you're doing right now. So I kind of wanted to take an opportunity to cut through a lot of this noise and jargon and say, here's what you can ignore, and here's where you can focus your effort if you want to have a significant and sustainable marketing program that gets you in touch with the right people. So to do that, kind of going back to basics, when we talk about marketing, there's three things to be aware of. So you have your owned marketing. So this is your website. Whenever you're speaking somewhere, it's basically the stuff that you can control. So the stuff you create, any of your materials that you're sending out, the emails that you send out, if you host a blog, if, obviously your website's a big one, or the social accounts that you own and control. Then there's earned coverage. So anytime there's a press write-up about you, anytime you're quoted somewhere, anytime on social media someone shares your content or engages with you, invitations to speak is kind of how owned and shared work together. And then there's paid. So that's the more classic advertising. So paying to be somewhere, whether it's buying a booth at an event, sponsoring content online, or doing a sort of a straight clear ad, boosted social posts, all of that. So I think this is important because a lot of people will jump right into, say, paid ads, and they won't have thought through their own content. So if you're paying for an ad that drives someone to your website and your website isn't in great shape, your own content isn't in order, then you're kind of wasting those efforts. So just keep these three things in mind through the rest of this presentation, because I'm going to use it as a framework in terms of where to focus your energy and what's going to be most effective for you. This is the other marketing jargon piece that I actually think is worth understanding. So a lot of the jargon I try to stay away from, but this is a marketing funnel and it shows your customer journey. So those two things, your customer journey, your client journey, and the funnel are actual terms to keep in mind. And that's the funnel is quite literally works like a funnel. It's taking the broad world of all the people out there and making them aware of your company. So that's step one. You're narrowing the pool to everyone who's aware of you. And then it narrows even further, everyone who's aware of you and then starts to consider working with you. And after all that consideration, it whittles down even further to the people who decide to become partners, clients, et cetera, the conversion. And then a lot of people think the job is done, but it's not, because that's where people get, you're vulnerable to someone leaving and going with a competitor, being unhappy. So you have to continue marketing to sort of your existing clients. So just keep this funnel in mind, because that's going to be the framework for what you should do as we keep going. So when we talk about retirement plans, if you go on and you just look up retirement plan providers, it is dominated by paid. All of these search results are paid to be there. And normally you have one or two sponsored results, and then you get to the good stuff. The entire wall, the first page, you have to scroll to get beyond the paid stuff. So keep that in mind. So if you're sitting here trying to optimize your search or your SEO, that's all well and good. But keep in mind that there's a lot of major companies out there that are paying a lot to cut the line. So as you're starting to think about where you spend dollars or where you optimize your time, just know that what the playing field looks like and where you're going to get the most sort of bang for your effort or bang for your dollar. That goes even further. So when we talk about content or even not paid content, organic search and what ranks, Google's going to say the best sources on this who talk about these types of things from across the web, they're pulling in based on their algorithms, the most effective websites. All of those, once again, you're seeing a big wave of top providers and performers. So, if you're at one of those larger firms, great. But if you're with a smaller firm, you're going to have to kind of find more creative ways to sort of differentiate yourself or break through the noise, because there is sort of a very saturated marketplace with these very, very large providers. So how do you do that? How do you carve out a niche for yourself where you find the right people who want to work with you? So it's getting smarter. So it's figuring out who your client is. And for a lot of folks working with retirement plans, there's something to keep in mind. There's the actual client, there's the plan sponsors or the companies that you're trying to engage with, but there's also the end participants, the plan participants. And even though you're not directly selling to them or marketing to them, they are part of that engagement in the funnel. Like if they're not happy with what you're doing, they're going to talk about it publicly. They're going to generate potentially negative publicity. And if they are really happy with what you're doing, the reverse happens. There's a lot of good reputation that can come out of marketing to these people who maybe aren't your direct target. You're not thinking of them as something that you can monetize, but so keeping in mind both of those sort of channels. And you see there's a survey at Right where, if you can fill this out and come up with an actual definition of, and some of this might be companies, like the type of companies that you're going after that you want to work with. It's mid-size, large, small, rough number of employees, assets that you expect to be managing in the plan, all of those types of things where you can come up with a profile that will make your marketing a lot more effective, because then you're going to start to think about, where do those people hang out? Where are they getting their news? Do they prefer video content or written content? What conferences are they attending? What industry publications are they reading? So once you can have a clear vision, a very specific vision of who that person is, you can start building a marketing plan that caters to them. And it sounds cheesy to sort of write it down or fill out a survey that defines it, but that's really critical. Almost all of us have in our heads a sense of who that client is. But I do this exercise with advisors all the time where I have them fill out this survey, and then we actually create a persona. We often will give it the person a name or the company a name and have it be a prototype, because then you're forced to kind of actually put some parameters on them and to start. It's easier to come up with a plan for a person that you can visualize versus a vague, abstract idea of marketing. So when we think about those two audiences in mind for your plan, this idea that think of it as two tracks where you're marketing to sort of the plan sponsors and the company and also the end plan participants. On the plan sponsor side, that's really the classic marketing, right? Those are the people that you're trying to engage with, whose business you want. So that's classic. It's full funnel from awareness to consideration to conversion. You want to know things like, where do they spend their time? What do they like? How do you connect with them? So you're going to be using owned platforms. You're going to be using sponsored and paid. Like, you want to be all encompassing all of those best practices I just talked about. You're going to want to lean into them strategically. But then there's also the holistic engagement where you're connecting to plan participants. It's a little bit of a soft win. And the way you achieve that is a little bit different. It's more owned, it's more sharing, it's education, it's content, it's a little bit different. So I built out sort of two tracks to show how you can focus your efforts so that you're not trying to do everything or getting caught up in all of that jargon or buzzwords, where you can pick a few things to focus on and still get the results that you want with the clients that you want. So going back to that funnel, plan sponsors, you're going through the full gamut of it, whereas plan participants, you're going on the engagement side and that awareness side. So taking you through that funnel with plan sponsors and awareness. So how is someone going to discover you? They're not necessarily going to find you via search unless they already know the name of your company, because they're going to encounter that wall of giant providers. So that creates a bigger hurdle for you than for a lot of other companies that are in a less saturated space that isn't dominated by massive plan administrators, et cetera. You can piggyback off of that by working with them or using some of their words. But in general, think about earned media. So how are people talking about you? What are you saying on social, where people like, can you engage in social in a way that people are going to encounter your name on a platform? Can you do some strategic paid opportunities to get your name out there so that there's just, and this is, we're only looking at familiarity. We want them to know your name. They don't necessarily have to know exactly who you are or what you do just yet. We just want them to know your name so that they have that peak curiosity or recognition, so that the next time they hear about it, they start to get more curious. They start to want to learn more. What both of these things have in common, though, is to do them well and to not waste your money. You need to know where your audience is hanging out. So if you're going to get media coverage, you want it to be in the right publication. What are they reading? It doesn't matter if you are covered in the New York Times if your clients are focusing on, Society for Human Resource Management's monthly newsletter type of a thing. So making a list, that's where you have that persona in your mind and you're like, okay, what media are they looking at? Where are they going for their information? So then you can focus on PR efforts with those specific groups. Same thing with social. A lot of folks want to be on every social channel because they think that they have to be. That's not the case. Where is that target audience, that client going for their information? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Twitter? Chances are they're not on TikTok. They might be on Facebook and on Instagram. In general, I think LinkedIn is a really smart place to start. They have been updating their algorithm to be sort of the anti-Twitter. So where Twitter, or I guess X, has really leaned into things that are provocative, evoke an emotional response, almost are more inflammatory. LinkedIn is going the opposite direction. They are trying to kind of curate subject matter experts who are well regarded with their peers. So if you are posting content that your clients are engaging with, that your peers are engaging with, that's going to signal to LinkedIn that you are a good person for them to promote in their algorithm. I don't know if you've noticed this, but oftentimes when you go on LinkedIn, you're not necessarily seeing content that's super recent. It tends to take a couple days to filter through the algorithm, and then LinkedIn will serve it up to you. So I always think if you're thinking about social, that's a good place to start. You can also boost posts on LinkedIn to get some promoted sponsorships, which again is going to put you in the eyesight of other people and can also help boost the organic algorithm if people start engaging with those paid posts and ads. Then here's the tricky part. When we get into consideration, so say someone's seen enough of your posts that they're curious about you and they want to learn more. That's when they're going to go to your website or to any of these own channels, and they're going to start to research you. And this is where it gets a little tricky, because I just told you to not focus on every single social platform, but you do want to have a presence on most of them. Even if you're not actively posting or engaging on any of them, if your client is going to go look you up on Facebook, you want to make sure that you have a Facebook profile page. If you think your client might go look you up on Twitter, you want to at least have a page there. So don't focus on those things, but don't forget about them either. So best practices is really going to be make sure you cover all of your bases and that they all reflect your company well. But then when it comes to your effort, money, time, attention, really focus on one. So someone just asked, is Twitter declining as a place to have an audience in this industry? And where is the next place? Twitter is changing so much lately with how Elon's adjusting the algorithm in real time that right now I would say it is declining. I've seen a lot of people in the advisor space, whether it's TAMPs or providers, shift off of Twitter or engage significantly less. I've actually seen a lot more traffic on platforms like Instagram, which seems really counterintuitive. I think the safest place is to focus on LinkedIn. So I wouldn't, to answer this, get off Twitter in terms of having an audience, especially if you're already there. But if you're looking for where to focus your efforts, I would say focus on LinkedIn. So if you were considering doing a boosted post and we're going to do $50 on Twitter, $50 on LinkedIn, do 100 on LinkedIn. LinkedIn also allows you to do longer posts in a way that feels more organic, where you're not paying for the verified check mark on Twitter. So yeah, Twitter is just creating a lot of rules and making it a lot more complicated to get in touch with the people that you want to be in touch with. So my preference or my recommendation is not to lean too hard into that right now, because a lot of what made us like Twitter a year or so ago has kind of gone away. But it's a great question. I struggle. I mean, I think about that all the time because I've met a lot of my first clients through Twitter and I want to keep using it, but I'm not getting the same results that you used to get just because of how it's been changing. When it comes to, so also when we talk about consideration, this is also where your classic marketing materials are going to go. So your brochures, any email communications, newsletters, etc. This is the stuff that you control and it's good to spend money on. So invest in good design, invest in making sure the writing is good. And I'm not saying you have to go pay someone to do it, but spend some time thinking about it. Make sure you're telling the right story so that when someone gets to your page, they are getting the right impression. You know, you can't control what your clients say about you when you're not in the room. You can't control how the media is going to cover you, but you can control what your website looks like. You can control what you send out via email. So it's kind of a bit of a secret weapon that we forget about. We forget how powerful it is to have control over those things. When we get to conversion, I'm curious, I wish I could do, was in person where I could see a show of hands, but when is the last time that you went through your closing process as a client? So we tend to use technology at this point to close a sale, whether it's signing people up for an account or getting their paperwork done, et cetera. And it can be really cumbersome. And if you're not familiar with what the client is going through, that can be it can be the start of a bad ongoing engagement, right? You want to have this positive ongoing relationship and keep marketing to them as they're your customer, but you want to make sure that that starts off on the right foot. So obviously closing a sale with someone is going to require a personal connection. You want it to have a little bit of the FaceTime, but you also want to make sure that the tech is supporting that. So this is really more of the business side with sales versus marketing, but I wanted to call it out because I think that what this experience is going to lay the foundation for a lot of that ongoing engagement, a lot of the referrals that you're going to be looking for. So do make sure that it is good. I mean, it's one of those things where no one's going to pay any attention to it if you're doing it well, but if there's a misstep, it's going to come back and haunt you at scale. And then engagement. So do you close and forget? How often are you contacting the people that you work with? Are you doing a monthly newsletter? What are you saying to them to make them feel prioritized and special so that they don't get pilched by a competitor or so that they don't start looking at other providers or just think that you're not providing the value that you said you would? And this is where the plan participants become a really great tool in some ways. I hate to refer to plan participants as a tool, but they are a tool for you to kind of win new business and keep your current clients happy. So this is where content emerges as an easy bar to win over participants. So 401ks and benefits in general are notoriously complicated for the users of them. We've seen there's a lot of really great research on behavioral finance in terms of how plan participants engage with the choices in their plans, how they think about retirement, fees, loss aversion, all of that. So there's a wealth of ideas that you can use to create articles, to create, infographics to help participants make sense of their plan, to help them evaluate the investment choices within them, to help them think through their big picture retirement plan. It's a particularly helpful thing for advisors where you might not just be working with companies and providers, or sponsors, but you might also have an opportunity to directly work with some of these plan participants as a wealth advisor. So content here is going to be a huge, huge, huge opportunity. It's going to make those plan participants feel seen and satisfied. And that is a big win. People tend to only talk about products if they're bad or if they love them. So most 401k plans fall somewhere in like it's whatever. So if you can elevate that experience in any way by explaining how target date funds work, what they should consider when they're retirement planning, helping them avoid some of those key mistakes or traps that people fall into, that's a huge win that people will tell their friends about, and will kind of take you to the next level. So that satisfaction fuels awareness. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. I have this network graphic there for a reason. Your plan participants are on the same social platforms and are experiencing the same media content, et cetera, that your target clients, that the plan sponsors are consuming. So being aware that even though you're not directly marketing to plan participants, being aware that they are in this ecosystem too is important. And that can work to your detriment if you do something bad or you don't do well by them, but it can also be a huge, huge, huge benefit if they are happy and a prospect sees it. So being aware of the fact that everyone's in this connected ecosystem is going to be really critical. And yes, I will share the slide deck after this, and I will also try and provide a few other supplementary materials to help you guys. So how to get started? Defining your audience is key. I can share surveys with you guys that I have templated, at least this is more on the advisor side if you're working with individuals, but I can also give you guys a template for how to start thinking about it in terms of a business and creating a client persona and how you can kind of define that. The next is to simplify your value add. You should be able to say in 2 really clear sentences, why you. So, and this is once someone goes to your website, let me take a step back. This simplifies that whole funnel thing. So if you're only concerned, people get really bogged down on the awareness level because they think they need that one tagline right off the bat in order to generate awareness. They don't want you to know the name of the company if you don't immediately know what the company does. That can be a mistake. Get your name out there, really lean into the awareness. And that means you can engage in different ways. It's commenting on people's posts. It's just kind of being out there. But then you want, once they've heard about you a few times, you want them to know what it is that you do. And you want that message to be really simple and clear and highlight the value that you add. So just sort of a one line. So with my business, it's, the next best thing to doing your own marketing, because we do a customized hands-on approach that replicates what people do within their own firm. And I'm not saying that as a sales point, I'm saying that in terms of, it took me 3 years to really boil down that tagline. So simplify, simplify, simplify. This also goes for the product that you're offering, and how you're presenting it to people. These plans are complex. They can feel overwhelming. So anything that you can do to make it easier, to make things easier, is going to be a win. And that means writing in English. It means I see a lot of advisors try and come up with really clever selling points where they're using an analogy or a metaphor to sell things. And that can be great if it simplifies things, but you can also get bogged down in creating too many of these. You're trying so hard to simplify that you almost make it more complicated. You create a lot of different analogies that no one can keep straight. So when in doubt, take a step back. Ask someone who has no sense of this industry to look at your site and say, okay, can you tell what it is that I do? And then add detail from there. So it's almost thinking of your website and your messaging as a funnel too. You want to have that one line attention grabbing. This is what we do. This is why we're the best at it. And then you can get into the detail. This is why we're the best at it, one line, but then you can get into all of the nuance about how you achieve that. So what you really want is you want to grab their attention enough that they want to learn more. You don't want to shove more at them. You want to like slowly seduce them into wanting to learn more and then provide more. So best practices. Perfect is the enemy of starting. So when it comes to marketing and say running an ad campaign for the first time, or say it's starting to send out monthly newsletters, perfect is the enemy of starting. I oftentimes see people when it comes to marketing think that if they don't have a full-fledged marketing strategy, they can't get started. And listen, I'm a big fan of having a strategy in place and being holistic in how you approach marketing, but just get started. Because if you can get started, you start to see things that are working, things that aren't working, and then you almost want to be more strategic about it. So really just get the ball rolling. I would say that with video content too. Video can be really powerful in terms of getting your name or face out there and building trust, but no one's going to like the first few videos that they do. You're always going to think that they're terrible. They're always better than you think. But a year from now, they're always going to be worse than what you're doing a year later. So keeping in mind that marketing is never going to be perfect right away. It's designed that way. It's designed to evolve. So just start and keep it simple. The same way you want to keep your website simple, keep your initial marketing plan simple. Find one thing to focus on. Maybe it's starting that monthly newsletter. And maybe as part of that newsletter, you are doing a really good job of, that's the other thing. A newsletter you don't have to originate every piece of content in your newsletter yourself. You can summarize takeaways from the industry. You can send articles that you like. That's part of your value add. So keep it simple and it will snowball from there. Maybe as part of the process of putting together this newsletter where you're saying best practices in managing benefits, you start reading specific publications and you find that you really like them and find them very helpful. Maybe that's the publication that you want to pitch an authored article to, or do an ad campaign with or in. So that's where I mean it starts to spiral once you get started. And then finally, ask your clients and then listen to what they say. So this is a trap I see a lot of people fall into. What we think is the most valuable thing about our company doesn't always track with what our clients think is the most valuable thing about our company. So as a founder myself, I love talking to advisors about the system that I built to keep their price point down, and it's innovative and I love it. That's not what they think is the best thing about working with me. They say it's having a marketing consultant, someone on their team, et cetera. So it was really hard for me to readjust my marketing to highlight what my clients liked instead of highlighting what I liked. So I'm saying that more as an example to learn from my stubbornness. So when you ask a client what they like about working with you or what they see as the value you bring to the table, listen to what they say and replicate it for your other clients. Also, ask your clients, what publications are you reading? What would make you want to refer us to other people? And take that feedback to heart. So once you've gotten started, you've taken that first step, you can start to fine tune it more and more based on the reaction from your existing clients and build from there. So I only have like about a minute left. I'll share the deck. I'm also always available I do consulting sort of sessions with folks where I'm happy to do a discount for anyone who attends here, where I'll give you guys 25% off if you want to do one of these marketing 1-week mastermind programs, where I can also provide some of these documents where it's those questionnaires. What I showed you on the right too, that's a way of testing your messaging. So we can come up with a bunch of different messages that you might be using to highlight your value, that ways of simplifying your message if that's hard for you, and we can kind of score them and rate them and see how they slide on a scale of interesting, effective, all of that, so that you have some quantifiable metrics too. So anything that I shared in this presentation, you'll be able to do on your own. You don't need to work with me for it. I've tried to build it to be agnostic, but if you do need help, I'm around and I can share this presentation. and would love to be of assistance.
Okay, we do have a couple of extra minutes because we did have like a last minute cancellation, but I just want to say my piece, my couple points. Number one, I just texted with a buddy of mine. I've seen too many people in this business with the greatest idea imaginable. And I'm not going to name names because if I do, I'm going to get myself in trouble. And I always have to watch what I say. That have failed because they had lousy marketing. It's just, you could have and I've always said that you can have the greatest idea ever in the 401k business. And I've seen some great ideas and I've seen them fail because they just didn't know how to market it. And it's all, to me, it's all about finding the right audience. Where is my audience? When I started my practice 13 years ago, I would, even before then, I would do like small business networking. And it was awful because I'm dealing with sole proprietors who have no retirement plans, who don't know anybody, who has a successful business, and and just it just didn't work out. You have to find, I always think you have to find the audience and have a message that, to me, when I was writing the articles, it's all about getting people interested and it's all about reputation building.
I see two really common mistakes that hit on exactly what you're saying. I see a lot of companies who are amazing at marketing and then don't have the product to back it up. But they do get a lot of business because it's sort of like this fear of missing out type of a thing. So I've seen people who can talk a big game. And I think people who have a really good idea, a really good product, love to hate on those guys, right? They love to say, hey, they're all smoke and mirrors, but their product isn't great. But they are getting the money. They are getting people in the door. Sure, those people won't necessarily stay, but they're getting that business instead of you because they have that marketing, because they're so focused on that message and they're good at it. Then the flip side is being the best kept secret in the industry, having that really good product and not marketing it to people. You do not want to be the best kept secret in the industry. That is not a compliment. So you have to, I think a lot of us can be resistant to marketing because we associate it with those companies that don't have the idea, the chops to back it up. But it's not that. A it is a necessary tool to grow your business.
Mike Webb's got a question. What do you think of LinkedIn Sales Navigator? I don't think he answered that one.
I haven't done a ton with it yet. LinkedIn on the paid side, like the premium subscriptions have gone up in price, which I think is indicative of the decline of Twitter. A lot of the in-mail promotions, et cetera, that go through them, I would stay clear of. I've done a lot with promoted posts lately and haven't gone straight into their sales funnels just because the top of funnel stuff, any of their sort of cold outreach, there's so much of it these days that people tune it out. So I've never steered clients toward that route. I just think there are better ways of doing it that are less expensive. But I'm putting that caveat in there of I haven't tried it yet because of those reasons. It's entirely possible that they've changed the experience a bit and it might be great, but I haven't seen good results from the folks I know who've tested it.
And last for me, again, this is going because I'll be next, and my presentation's about Curb Your Enthusiasm and pet peeves and all that. And latest thing, and I've been doing it on Twitter, sometimes LinkedIn. What is going on with number one pet peeve? You try to connect with me, and you immediately send me that mail message, and all you want to do is sell me something. I mean, when did that? I've noticed that just more frequently. To me, it's I don't mind connecting with people, but I can tell already when you're going to try to sell me something. My job is law firm leads, and you connect with them, and then all of a sudden they're trying to sell you leads, and then listen, I only do ERISA, and I get leads for they're trying to sell me leads on negligence attorneys, where they don't even know what I do. I mean, when did that start?
I mean, I think a lot of people shifted their presence. I don't know if you've noticed, like a lot of that in mail, especially on the LinkedIn side, all of that promoted selly type of messaging really skyrocketed after Elon bought Twitter because a lot of that organic outreach kind of went down. And so people leaned into this paid cold sell. There's also cold calling isn't as successful these days because people don't like picking up their phone. So people are trying to find out different ways of reaching out to people. But that also means that organic outreach that's not paid on those channels can also get thrown through the filter. So that's part of why I always emphasize going back to the basics of that really simple and compelling message. I also think that you need to be mindful of when to sell and when not to sell. I mean, you would never in an in-person meeting lead with, I'm trying to sell you something. You would get to know that person first. You would share your sort of expertise, become a bit of a thought leader so that when you get around to talking about your product, they want to work with you. Think of marketing that way. Essentially, marketing is like if you were going to have an in-person conversation where you closed a sale, you want marketing to do all of that warm-up phase, which is usually the small talk, the fun stuff, so that you can do the close on the sale. So a lot of people make the mistake of just going straight into sales mode with ads, with anything like that, or they'll only post about their product. They'll only try to sell you. It needs to be a bit more well-rounded than that. Think of what the narrative that you're putting out there into the world as if it were a conversation where you're kind of selling to someone. We are all good at that part. So how do you replicate that? How do you scale it so that that actual conversation is shorter and easier to close because you've done a lot of that warm-up work?
And last but not least, so I do Constant Contact. I've been doing it since the beginning of time, doing newsletters, telling people about these events. I'm big on that. One thing I love about Constant Contact is that safe unsubscribe button. I don't want to bother you. You don't like what I have to say. And I have 12,000 readers or emails. I'll get like 10 a month or something like that. What has happened in this business, and it's just not, again, not just a retirement plan business, it's everywhere where they just send you these emails and you feel like you're part of a religious cult because there's no safe unsubscribe button. They're like, if you don't want me to, if you want to opt out, just say, blow off or something like that. And it just the constant, and I don't want to give them that
Well,
satisfaction.
no, and legally you have to have an unsubscribe button up there. It's just people find workarounds to hide it. So definitely have an unsubscribe, but there's also ways you can use it to your advantage where when someone unsubscribes, they ask you for a reason. A lot of those providers like a MailChimp or a Constant Contact will pre-program it with no longer interested, didn't sign up.
Yeah.
Be really mindful of those options because if someone reports it as spam, then that's going to dock your whole credibility and your ability to send marketing out in the future. But also something along the lines of like, I wasn't sharing the right information for you, or you are no longer in this business. It can also give you insight into your clients. That's almost a mini market research. The other cool thing about Constant Contact and a lot of those is that they usually have a survey functionality built in. So you can kind of ask people for questions and their feedback. People like being asked what they think. It makes them feel important and engaged. And then I could do an entire new presentation, and maybe I'll do that next year with you, Ari, but about sort of automating some of these things and having follow through. So if you have a great meeting, getting a drip campaign going, and at the end of it, you can auto subscribe them to your emails, but you can also say, hey, I don't want to keep bugging you. So either subscribe and you can keep getting some insights from me, or if you decided to go with someone else, mind sharing who that is, or if you think we can be doing something better, mind letting me know. So there's really great ways that you can automate, but also use your clients as a resource. In this financial services industry, we tend to know a lot more about our clients than most other industries. It's a bit of a secret weapon, but you have to know how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, there was one guy recently. I think he was obviously, I'm going to get myself in trouble. It was somebody I think in the insurance business trying to sell me insurance, and I think it was 7 times. The constant emails, and I just wouldn't give him the satisfaction of just saying no. I just wanted to see how long I could drag it out before he would just give up. So, and
Exactly.
right now I'm working
It
with
would be
somebody on LinkedIn who's also insurance, and I think he's now at the third. Could we sit down and have a meeting? I'm like, no, I got my insurance guy. It's just whatever.
yeah.
Okay, that's
Thank you for having me, though. I always love getting to nerd out about this kind of stuff. And yes, I'll send the deck for you, anyone who wants it, and anyone feel free to ping me with follow-up questions.
yeah,
And
and I just want to point out, marketing. I always joke for most plan providers sucks, and I think everybody would be smart to hire you because you're not only great with the marketing but retirement plan specific. because it's nothing worse to hire somebody who just does marketing for the local bar or any other business. The idea that you understand the audience, you understand the industry, and so, like I said, I think people would be.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I can put a bundle together of content that is that sort of thought leadership for plan participants for you, that kind of walks them through those key things based on how your plans are built, whether it's, QLACs or target date funds or anything like that. Those types of explainer bundles is something that I can definitely help you with, or there's a bunch of writers out there that specialize in finance, but make sure you find one that really specializes in it, because a lot of people will say they do, and it's just that they understand credit scores. They don't understand the in-depth of it. So just, eyes wide open always.
Yeah, and you must be doing something right when James raves about your work. So, yeah.
James is my favorite aside from being a Mets fan, but I know you are too, so I won't say
Listen,
anything.
we can't all be perfect. Listen, if you were an Islanders fan, that's where that's where I get
Draw the line.
it. Yeah. There's a joke I have. Islanders and anything from Philly. So
We can agree on Philly.
exactly. Okay, so thanks again, and see you soon.
See you soon.
Take care. Uh, Next is me, and with everything, there was a last minute cancellation. These are the breaks you have. That's always with a live show. I hope everybody sees this, and you should be seeing it. And my topic is, well, it's not a topic, but just everybody knows when I do these presentations, I always talk about what I want to talk about, and trying to meld it in with stuff that's going on, allusions to stuff and whatnot. Um, and Yes, Mike, I won't hold it against you that you were an Islanders fan because you did grow up in Brooklyn. It is what it is. I truly dislike the Islanders, probably because I truly dislike living on Long Island, but it's a whole nother story. But that's with me. But again, we do these presentations, we do these cultural illusions, get people interested in it because a spoonful of sugar will get the medicine to go down. And a little warning, these are opinions, and I always preface it, these are my opinions. They aren't wrong unless they're based on incorrect facts, such as most discussions on my community Facebook groups, which always reminds me one of my favorite stories. My most popular article annually is the payroll provider TPA article. I've been doing it since 2010, usually around June. I do it every year. My favorite parts of that article, there was one time I got a lawsuit threat by one of the payroll providers. There's, ADP and Paychex in the world. So one of them, I think, sent me a letter threatening to sue me, one of the other articles. And I didn't do anything about that. It is what it is. And, it is what it is. But yeah, I got that one. I would get, you post it on LinkedIn, and you get a comment or two from somebody who works for ADP and Paychex, and they'll say, well, Ari, that's not true. That didn't happen. I'm like, that's my experience. And my experience with those payroll providers hasn't been good for clients. I've seen too many mistakes. But I'm also the type of person that my opinions can change. It's based on experience. So years ago, I just saw Bill Shorey's. Bill Shorey's will remember when I started, 13 years ago, my own practice, I was very much against producing TPAs. I didn't like the idea of them, that pre-fee disclosure, the idea that you could raise your fees simply by switching plans from a revenue sharing, non-revenue sharing model to a revenue sharing platform, and not telling your clients that you're actually making more money or it's the same amount of money. It just, to me, was a conflict when a TPA that had its own RA firm would just steer a client to revenue sharing paying funds and not disclose it to them. Because, again, fee disclosure, the idea behind it is plan sponsors have a duty of prudence in paying only reasonable fees. And how can they only do that? They don't know how much things cost. Opinions, like I said, based on experience. Curb Your Enthusiasm is probably one of my favorite shows of all time. To me, everybody knows Dallas is probably my favorite show of all time, and after that is probably Seinfeld, and maybe Curb is third. I don't know, or sometimes Curb is better than Seinfeld. Curb, of course, everybody knows Seinfeld was developed by Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David. Larry David was behind the scenes. He was the voice of Steinbrenner all those times. He did pop up every now and then in a few episodes. Um, Most famous, he was the caped lawyer when Frank was considering Frank Costanza was considering getting a divorce from his wife Estelle, and he was the attorney with a cape. And if you see at the end, someone asks him, "Who are you?" and he's like, "I'm Frank Costanza's attorney." Larry David, I always like because he says what he feels. He will certainly say it in an episode, and you'll feel like he has the voice that you don't, because good manners gets in the way. We always see the time people are pig parkers, for example, and we always want to confront them. To me, I can't stand pig parkers. I can't stand people who don't return the cart to the corral. I actually had a Larry David experience a few weeks ago at the Target in Westbury, where there was a woman in a handicap spot and didn't return the cart. Actually, she wasn't in a handicap spot. She just returned it. They always return the cart in the handicap spot, which is the last place you should be putting anything, because people are handicapped. They need room. So I said, you couldn't put it away. It's like 10 feet away, the corral. And she's like, well, the employees got to do it. But I'm like, you know what? It takes no effort. And if you pretend that there are other people around you, you'll be okay. And of course, the problem with Larry sometimes is when he's a hypocrite. There's the episode with Marty Funkhauser's sister, Bam Bam, and Larry was upset that the doctor came in and went into his fridge to get a soda, or what I think was a lemonade. And Marty Funkhauser says, liquids are okay. It's when you go in and get the food that I have a problem with. And of course, Larry goes to Marty's house, see Bam Bam and whatnot, and then he goes into the refrigerator and he starts eating cold cuts. You can't be a hypocrite when you're complaining all the time about things. Fiduciary rule. It's deja vu all over again. Yogi Berra said it best. Uh, we've tried this again and again and again. I was surprised when Trump lost that the Biden White House didn't revamp the rule, but this has been going on for as long as almost I've been in business. Just remember that ERISA was signed into law in 1974, was effective in 1976. We really, up until that fiduciary change that the Trump White House implemented, there's been a change in the business. Everybody knows defined benefit plans in 1976 were, as popular as the Hustle. I want to say the Hustle came out in 75 as a song. Disco was around in 76, obviously. Disco Demolition Night for the Chicago White Sox fans, that was 79. But the business changed. We went from defined benefit plans to to participant directed 401k plans, daily valuation. Everything changed. And so, in my opinion, the fiduciary rule had to change. And it's been going on and on and on. It's like an endless circle. They put in a rule, they take it back, they put it back in again, and they take it back. I remember helping one of the insurance companies try to transform the rule that the Obama White House was going to put in play in 2016. And then, of course, surprisingly, Trump won. And within a week, I was let go from the project because they knew that the rule was going to get withdrawn, which is basically what happened. The Department of Labor was sued over that new rule, that Obama rule, and then the Trump-led DOL just turned over and played dead. To me, with any change, I think the biggest focus to me is the rule on rollovers, and that will always be the interesting part of it, because how often, I mean, personally, I had that experience where somebody's trying to roll you over into an expensive investment product that isn't in your best interest. We see that all the time. And therefore, to me, that is where you need protection. And of course, this rule is going to be no different than the Obama rule. Listen, we got a presidential election coming up. Some guy named Trump running again. He may win again. We'll see what happens. Obviously, in politics, we're at the end of January. A lot can happen until November, and it's quite possible that Trump can win. It's also possible that Biden could win, or somebody else enters the race that Biden's not running again, or something happens legally with Trump. These are all considerations to partake. And if you've noticed, I never write articles about proposed rules. To me, it's silly because I don't have all that much free time. Um, and I like to talk about when rules are implemented. So if the rule does get implemented, you'll hear me talk about it. The struggle of PEPs. This is part of the discussion that we had yesterday. Is it me or does the DOL hate PEPs? I think they do. I think they really, really hate PEPs. The reason they hate PEPs goes all the way back to the 2012 advisory opinion. Our friends at TAG, who I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but they went for advisory opinion, which to this day I still am against. I thought it was a bad idea. I had talked to the attorney who submitted the application for that advisory opinion, and his explanation was, well, it was $1 billion MEP, and they wanted to get some clearance. And I come from the Morton Blackwell school of politics, because Morton Blackwell, if you ever, interesting, he's a conservative activist, but he had a pretty good, I guess, his leadership institute has some pretty good schools on politics and school newspapers and all that. But Morton Blackwell's number one rule of politics is never give a bureaucrat a chance to say no. So if, as an ERISA attorney, if I had $1 billion 401k plan MEP, I would never have gone to the advisory opinion stage with the DOL because I'd be afraid of what the DOL will say. I've had circumstances where a solo practitioner with a defined benefit plan wanted to buy a house within a plan, pay fair market value. And even though the plan wasn't covered in the ERISA, I had to go to the Department of Labor for advisory opinion approving it. And they rejected it. I even got another law firm involved in it. And there was no point where they were going to approve it, even if he was paying fair market value. Wouldn't have given them the chance. So that advisory opinion came out in 2012. It really hurt all of us in the open MEP business. If you recall, Trump delegated, basically ordered the Department of Labor to come out with some MEP rules to make it easier to MEPs to operate. And all they did was regurgitate the 2012 advisory opinion, which, of course, is the idea that without a connection or a nexus, no commonality between adopting employers, then therefore they were not a single employer for 5,500 purposes. And again, like I said yesterday, PEPs were made into law by Congress and Trump. Trump signed it. Secure 1.0. No thanks to the Department of Labor. So again, that's why I believe we all, when we saw the PEP rule, we liked it because it said, you don't need an audit unless you have 1,000 participants or an adopting employer with 100 more employees. Now, the Department of Labor gave us a break on audits. Well, we only have to count account balances. But what's interesting is, and it came out of the blue, the Department of Labor said, no, you have a PEP with 100 participants, you need an audit. And that is surprise. That's a surprise. I hate surprises. When my wife was pregnant, I had to know it's a boy or a girl on both times. It's one or the other. It's not going to be a dodge dart. It's going to be a boy or a girl. And I'm not a big fan of surprises, and this was a surprise. And being in the PEP space, this was an awful surprise. And the funniest part with the Department of Labor, they came out with guidance on that, but they really never came out with guidance on what I think are conflict of interests. TPAs serving as the PPP, advisors serving as the PPP. Where's the, where's the lack of conflicts? I got into a fight with a certain TPA, won't name names. I'm a PPP on one plan, and they tried to replace me. And my biggest point was, first of all, they couldn't. But second of all, was how would they ever fire the advisor involved with the plan? How would they ever fire the TPA? If the TPA is the PPP and the TPA, they would never fire themselves. And so therefore, we've never seen anything that, to me, helps with conflicts. And it's interesting that the Department of Labor has never put out anything on that. Again, small PEPs are struggling. I'm sure my friends at PEP RFP will probably tell you that there have been quite a few PEPs that have closed the doors, and I think that this opinion, this guidance on audits is going to put them out there. Some PEPs were just as bad idea as a spite store, and that's a Curb Your Enthusiasm reference when Larry got into a big fight with Mocha Joe. Mocha Joe opened up a store, and Larry decided to open up Latte Larry just to spite him. I don't think anybody ever created a PEP out of spite, but they created PEPs where there was never going to be the business to support it. So a very, very small RIA practice, with all due respect to everybody, you probably weren't going to have the business in order to generate traction for PEPs. The most successful PEPs I've ever worked at, the most successful PEP will be the one that Andrew Zito talked about yesterday, which is the MEP that converted to a PEP. So PEPs will go out of business or they will consolidate. That's what Andrew talked about yesterday. Not everybody needed their own branded PEP. There was nothing wrong as an advisor. Check your ego at the door. Work with one of these providers that has a PEP. You get it on their chassis and whatnot. And as long as there was a role for you to make a fee and have a good lineup, what's the point? But everybody wants to go in and get their own thing. I mean, years ago, I worked with a TPA and tried to put out my own open MEP. Didn't work out. Ambition's great, but if you don't have the business support it, it's not so great. Again, PEPs are really not for everybody. To me, obviously plans with millions of dollars of assets are less of a good candidate than others. There are, plan sponsors out there that are really on top of things and don't want to give up their control, so they're not going to want to be in a PEP. There are too many providers to me that offered one. I think there are too many providers that offered one for a market that really didn't understand it. I don't think the plan sponsors still to this day understand it. I don't think that there's been a lot of good marketing. Again, cheap plug for Shauna and what she does, but I don't think that there's a great conversation going on in terms of plan sponsors understanding what that is. And plan providers were really showing they're really marketing cost savings. And unless you achieved a size of critical mass, you don't really have savings. You have the idea of savings, but if the plan doesn't get big enough, you're not going to have any savings. And I had looked to, at one point, my own branded PEP. And the TPAs that I talked to were pretty smart. They're pretty wise. They priced the business as if I was bringing in nothing. And so they were charging a fee that was similar to a startup of a plan on their own. To me, the beauty of the PEPs has always been fiduciary delegation. That's what I would market and focus on. The idea that you could farm it out. You don't have to do 5,500s on your own, all that kind of stuff. And state IRA programs, I think, are really the room and avenue to grow. And this is, to me, the opportunity. So a lot of states have implemented it. A lot of states will eventually implement it. I mean, New York passed the law. I don't know where they are at, but requiring small businesses to have a plan. I know people will say that's a bad thing, but listen, we're in the retirement plan business. Increasing coverage for retirement plans for people out there in the private sector is not a bad thing. I know people think the state programs are something out of communist Soviet Union, but I assure you they are not. But, quite honestly, plan sponsors or, people who have to join that auto IRA program, they probably would consider a 401k plan of their own through a PEP because, the savings limits and whatnot. And, that's really how I see it. Mike, you gotta further your question because I don't know what a GOP is. Because to me, GOP is the Republican Party. So further that question, but I did like he's referencing New Coke. Groups of plans. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm bad with acronyms. Did you ever notice people do acronyms all the time on Twitter or X or whatever they call it, and I actually have to Google it and see what the heck they mean. Groups of plans. Will that be a thing in the future? uh, groups of plans to me was what I called actually I didn't call it that, but somebody else called it a MEOP, which was when the MEP rules came in on that advisory opinion. The idea was we'll create separate plans. We'll have one master plan document, but we'll group them all together. But there'll be separate plans for 5500s. Uh, I I don't I don't think they really got the traction. New Coke, they will always be there. New Coke to me is one of the funniest parts of the history. Uh, the reason that New Coke is a funny part of history was in taste tests, New Coke always beat Old Coke. People don't talk about that. People don't want to talk about that. And New Coke arose because of the popularity of Diet Coke. Diet Coke is not a diet-free version of Coke. Coke Zero is a diet-free version of Coke because it's got that Coke taste. Diet Coke has a completely different taste. People love Diet Coke. It became really, really popular, and therefore that's why Coca-Cola decided to change the formula. And of course, what Coca-Cola didn't realize was people had an attachment to Coke that wouldn't show up in a blind taste test, and that's why it was a disaster. But of course, people are cynics and will claim that that was the plan all along to screw that up. But are these MEOPs new Coke? I don't know. I think to me they're like mellow yellow. They're still out there if you could find it. But I don't think it will ever really get that much interest because people are going to push out Peps because it's all about delegation. The funny thing about crypto, it's interesting as we say this. SoFi required me to close my crypto account because dealing with bank regulators. So I actually had to sell it. I had to sell it by the 28th. I sold it today. And then I bought the Fidelity Bitcoin ETF to replace that. Department of Labor was adamant against crypto. There's been litigation over their opinion. Um, Fidelity, was offering it for us all, was offering it too. They're the ones who sued the DOL. I don't even know where it's going with that. It was really easy to be against crypto when down. Listen, it takes a long time to get products to the marketplace, and I'm sure that Fidelity and for us all, we're planning on offering a Bitcoin option. When Bitcoin was at 69,000, it wasn't really good when they came to market and Bitcoin was 19,000. It's more than doubled. Right now I think it's at 41 and change. I should have sold at 49, but it reminds of we should have gone to Roy Rogers from the Pine Barrens episode of Sopranos. I think ETFs are going to really make it hard for the DOL to continue to say no. Something that's SEC approved. It's a lot harder than just a simple Bitcoin in somebody's wallet that could be hacked or whatever it is. To me, the idea that a 401k plan would have its own Bitcoin wallet to me sounded kind of silly in terms of danger from cyber thieves, cold storage, and this, and that. And again, I think that the more of course, everybody sold on the news. Bitcoin went down from 49 to 41, or actually to 39 now. I think it's back over 41. When it continues to grow, I think the ETF inflows from Fidelity, the iShares of the world, our buddies at Invesco, it's only going to be more money into the market buying, Bitcoin, and therefore, again, when things are hot, people are going to push. When can I have that? And brokerage windows, that's always been an issue to me because what happens if participants want to buy into an ETF? Do you restrict access? To me, I think you kind of have to restrict access to it because who has the issue. You want to allow investments that the DOL is going to frown on. And if you ever looked at that little point of information that they had for crypto, they were basically saying, we're going to get lists of plan sponsors that are on there, and if anybody's signing up for us all, I think we're going to go and audit them. That's how I read it. And in terms of, and Andrew had a question, if a plan sponsor says self-directed and the participant pits Bitcoin, they're self-directed, how does the plan sponsor mitigate their exposure? Mitigate their exposure. Don't allow it, or mitigate their exposure. They've talked to the plan participant. I don't like. Everybody knows me. I don't like self-directed brokerage accounts. Listen, I like to pick my own stocks. Uh, I wouldn't do it if I was still employed somewhere else. I have no interest in it. To me, brokerage windows are a problem because plan sponsors forget the fact that they are fiduciaries for all plan assets, and that includes, uh, assets in brokerage windows. And so, therefore, you're at a crossroads. How does they mitigate their exposure? They have a duty to review. And if somebody has too much Bitcoin exposure, because let's say they have a Fidelity account and Fidelity's got this great crypto option, I'm invested in that too. How are you going to stop it? It's just a matter of stopping it from the get-go on these brokerage accounts, or again, having to talk with participants. I always joke about the participant who put in all their money in a double inverse Chinese ETF. I'm sure there are people out there like that, and I'm sure that there are plan sponsors who never discuss anything with the plan participant on what they're doing in their brokerage accounts. It's just they feel like it's their business. But again, plan sponsors are fiduciaries for all plan assets, including what's in a brokerage window. Forfeit this. One of my favorite scenes in Donnie Brasco was, you see a lot of mafia movies. It's all glitz and glamour. Donnie Brasco is kind of different because it's all about a Bonanno family crew, and they had to make their weekly take. And so there was this. I love the scene where they're taking these New York City parking meters and they're banging it to steal the quarters. And that's how I feel with a lot of ERISA litigators out there. I'm not talking about the Jerry Schlichters of the world. I'm talking about the people who don't have that experience and don't have that knowledge. They just wanted to get into the ERISA space because they saw a quick score. And I think Jerry Schlichter was involved in some of these BlackRock cases on the target date funds, and those failed miserably. Probably could have told you it would have failed miserably. Now they're going to focus on forfeitures. You see a lot of lawsuits about it. And at first thought, I'm like, that's why. I mean, we can always use forfeitures. Plain documents rule. But the problem that I found later, I think there was a recent lawsuit about it. With forfeitures, you have the opportunity to pay administrative expenses. And there was just a plan recently, I don't remember the company, but rather than pay administrative expenses, they reduced the contribution. And these attorneys want to say that that's a prohibited transaction. And it might be a prohibited transaction if you had the opportunity to pay administrative expenses, but you want to save a couple of shekels on your match contribution. I think it's important to always use that forfeiture provision properly. If plan participants are paying for administrative expenses, I think my preferable provision is to pay those expenses and then reallocate. Don't reduce. Don't be in Yiddish we called it a schnorrer. Don't be a cheapskate. Reallocate it, but I would use it all to pay administrative expenses if they're paying it up front. I don't think that reducing contributions a prohibited transaction, but I'm not sitting as a judge. Never had any interest in being a judge. To me, it sounded like really boring. Maybe it's my ADD or ADHD, and I don't know if I could sit all day with a gavel and ruling on motions and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think it was for me, but we'll see what these federal judges think. I've always felt that there was a bias against these ERISA litigators from the federal bench because there's just too many cases. We've seen it with a lot of these plan expense lawsuits. They don't want to see these cases. They don't want to second guess plan fiduciaries. So again, I don't think that you should ever let plan participants pay more, and so let them pay administrative expenses and just move on. Other points to consider: long-term part-time is going to be a mess. Yes, we have it now. There are going to be a lot of errors and plan sponsors making improper exclusions as a workaround, which means they're going to try to exclude part-time employees. And the problem with doing that is any classification where you're excluding people has to be reasonable. There will be people who will try to be clever and exclude the part-timers, and as long as they pass coverage in their mind, they'll be okay. But you'll see IRS and DOL audits where they will say that the exclusion is improper. Just it's just a hunch. The Roth for HC catch-up, it was delayed. Will it be delayed again? Probably not. The reason why I don't think the Roth for HC catch-up is going to be delayed further is because the whole point of Secure 2.0, I believe, was that it was a moneymaker for them by requiring all, HCEs. And to me, my personal opinion, your HCE making $160,000, and you live in New York, Boston, San Francisco, LA, you're not really that wealthy. That's how I see it. But that was part of the rule. Payroll providers complained a whole lot that they couldn't get this done correctly, and it was pushed back. I don't think it'll get pushed back further. De minimis incentives. The limit is $250. Why am I referencing Jets tickets? Because I always like to talk out of school and tell you my favorite stories. My favorite story with Jets tickets, talking about de minimis benefits. You'll hear law firms say, well, if you want to give gifts to plan sponsors, it should be de minimis. Years ago, I worked at a TPA. We had an administrator who was a real disgusting human being, in my opinion. He was new to the administrator job for the 401k plan, and he simply sent a buddy of mine a jet schedule, and he circled the tickets of the games that he wanted. And of course, my TPA that I worked for bought him Jets tickets. So the de minimis incentive limit is $250. So if you know anything about New York ticket prices, you certainly can't give a plan participant a ticket to a New York Ranger game, which reminds me, going to the Stadium Series game in a few weeks at MetLife Stadium. De minimis incentives is a workaround the contingent benefit rule, where you can't preface benefits for people to defer or not defer in a 401k plan. Obviously matching contributions are an exclusion. They came out with the guidance on the minimus incentives. It's 250. It's got to be for people who are not deferring to get them to defer. It can't be matching contributions. And again, people are already deferring or deferring to the max, like my wife. They can't get that incentive. And to me, de minimis benefits, what are you looking at? Small little gift card to Amazon or Fanatics or whatever they want, in order for them to participate. I don't know if that's going to be popular. Other points, that's a point that I should have deleted from last year, but we could go back to those points because some of those are still mattered. Cybersecurity is still a big deal. ESG ruling, I'm not a big fan of ESG funds still to this day. We'll see how that goes. There's that American Airlines lawsuit that pilot sued that is probably going to go nowhere, in my opinion. But that's always something to consider and talk about. Other points, consolidation is going to continue. We've seen that RAA, TPA side. Bigger companies aren't as fast as smaller ones, so I think there's enough business out there to succeed. There's not going to be 3 TPAs left in the marketplace. It's just not going to happen. The larger these providers, they buy other large providers, and they're immediately going to try to prune business that isn't as profitable, especially if they're publicly traded. They only want to focus on the business that they seek the most profit, because it's all about shareholder value. So again, greatest amount of revenue, they're just going to prune. They're going to eliminate redundant positions. We're going to see a lot of good people placed on waivers. We saw that with a lot of the fund companies that merge and whatnot. If you're not large, it's an opportunity. See what the competition is doing and do what that's unique. This isn't the cola business where it's Coke or Pepsi. I can't remember last time I've seen a bottled Diet RC Cola around, but that's how it is. And the self-correction on deferral failures on the automatic enrollment, that's something to consider. There's a way to get out of it, and they made it permanent. There was an expiration date on it. you're not required to make that corrective contribution for the missed deferral opportunity, provided that you gave it within 45 days after the corrective deferrals restart, and then the correction occurs within 9.5 months after the plan year in which the deferral failure first occurred. That's a good thing to know. Secure 2.0 amendments have been delayed to 2026. So I won't bother plan sponsors out there for that amendment that they don't want to pay for. The Secure 2.0 relaxed the rules prohibiting mid-year simple IRA termination. So you can simply now make that simple IRA, terminate it mid-year, and replace it with a safe harbor 401k plans. They got to be notified 30 days in advance of the termination. During the transition year, the contribution limits can't exceed the weighted average of the separate plan limits. So you can't terminate a simple IRA within the mid of the year or the end of the year and take a hold of the entire 401k limits, because they're obviously want to have that workaround, because people are going to want to do that. All of a sudden the owner of the company has got a month left to go in the year. He switches a simple IRA out, and he's going to want to put in the full 401k amount. We are live, and this is my selling point. Listen, everybody knows what I do. I'm an ERISA attorney. You have a plan problem, you give me a call. I don't have to ask you who your ERISA attorneys are. If you like what I do, you'll call me. That's how it is. But we are, I will shill for my live events to get them going. We obviously do this virtual thing. We do it live, and we do it live at ballparks around the country. We've done it at a few NFL stadiums. We will be back live on May the 3rd, 2024 in Arlington, Texas, site of the home stadium of the Texas Rangers. For people who want to go to a game, unfortunately, the game is May 2nd in the afternoon, but if people want to go, they'll hit me up and ask me, and I'm certainly going. We always have fun there. For about $100. You could attend live from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We usually do a stadium tour. We have a athlete appearance. I'll speak out of school. I saw my buddy Larry this week, who arranges all our athlete appearances. Right now, we're waiting to hear back on Dave Valley, who used to play with the Mariners and apparently played with the Rangers and is the Rangers, I think, TV voice. We'll see if he's available to attend. And we will be back in New York, June the 7th, Yankee Stadium. I jokingly call it my ancestral home. It really isn't my ancestral home. My family, one side comes from Hungary, Romania, the other side comes from Poland. But when my grandparents on my mother's side moved to the United States, they settled in the Bronx. So that's why I say Bronx is my ancestral home. We'll be there at Yankee Stadium, June the 7th. Always well attended in New York, New Jersey. That's where we always draw the biggest crowds. It's great that we'll be able to have this event in Yankee Stadium. There will be game tickets for people interested in it. We may have an upcharge for it because they are playing the Dodgers that day. So that should be an interesting game and should sell out quickly. And as far as a guest, names have been thrown around: Jim Leyritz, Roy White. We'll see who's available in town that weekend, which usually determines where we go for our events. And pretty good. Well, at least that's how I see it. You may think differently. These are my, points of contact. And listen, you want to contact me, you know where I am and all that kind of stuff. So I don't see any further questions. Okay. How are advisors going to prospect small employers out of PEPs? That's an interesting question. I would focus on businesses. That's a big headache, a giant headache. Obviously, you could prospect people who currently have plans. How do you prospect those who don't have plans? Well, you probably will go and try to deal with a database that has see businesses out there and see who may get stuck within that state auto IRA plan. It's not going to be easy to target, but that's where I would focus, and maybe have that marketing standpoint where, again, my opinion is this. Politically, I think people socially are more liberal than they are conservative, in my opinion. I'm not going to say anything controversial, but when it comes to finances, I think they are more conservative when it comes to government involvement, and people will have a cynical view of government-run retirement plans merely because they see what's going on with Social Security. And if they had a choice, they would put it out there in the they would rather not be in the private sector. They would rather be in the private sector and whatnot. In plan annuities, I hate it. I don't like it. I don't have plan sponsors offer annuities. There was a reason years ago when the IRS allowed DC plans to eliminate annuities out of their plans for a reason. I don't like annuities. Our plan sponsor is going to vet the annuity provider. Stop giving more jobs for plan sponsors to do. Just like, the whole I didn't put in the presentation, but the IRS put out guidance for the after-tax Roth employer contribution thing, and it says it's not going to be on a W-2, it's going to be on a 1099. Why are we giving the TPA more things to do? This should be a payroll thing. I thought it should have been part of the W-2. It won't be. It'll be a 1099 thing. You think the TPA wants to do this? Do you think the plan sponsor wants to deal with the headaches of putting in an after-tax contribution? Do you think the TPAs want a separate keep? No. So I don't like annuities because I don't like to give plan sponsors more jobs to do, and I didn't like them for a reason. I don't like insurance-based products in a 401k plan. That's my 2 cents. And I know I'm going to get the hate mail from people in the insurance business, but that's my 2 cents. Uh, how are we going to outmarket the pay providers that are calling them all the time? Again, I think the argument is having the discussion with plan sponsors that payroll providers have nothing to do with 401k plans. 401k plans is just deferrals. It's got good plan administration, has nothing to do with payroll. Yeah, you want to make sure that the data and information is done correctly, but outside of that, payroll almost has nothing to do with deferrals. I mean 401k plans, their payroll gets you deferrals, deposit them in quickly. That's it. It has nothing to do with administration. It has nothing to do with an ADP test. It just has nothing to do with it. And I think that that's the conversation that you have to have with plan sponsors. Um, Recently, I heard from an advisor. They moved the plan to a payroll provider, wasn't happy with it because the payroll provider wanted to restate the document to their own. I said, this is what they want to do. And I said, move to a payroll provider. Let me guess. It's a safe harbor plan. And of course, I was right. Really hard to screw up a safe harbor plan. Got no ADP tests, really no top heavy. So, as long as you give the payroll providers safe harbor plans, they really can't screw it up, except they can. So that's it for my presentation. And like I said, contact me for further information. And did we have another Q&A? No, that's it. And next, Mike, you there?
I am here.
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you, Ari.
And Mike Kirschman from Plan Notice. He has, to me, one of the best programs out there. Plan notices is one of the things that plan sponsors aren't aware of, but they need to be. They always think that just because somebody terminates, they're not entitled to a notice. And he's going to talk about, the solutions to one of the biggest problems that I see that could really land the plan sponsor in trouble.
Thank you, Ari. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to see if we can get this to work. So, am I showing? I think it's working, huh?
Yep, I see it.
Perfect. Well, good. Well, I appreciate you giving us a little bit of time to talk to everybody a little bit about what is going on from a standpoint of our organization and some of the things that we've done to continue to enhance the opportunity that is an opportunity regarding the noticing process, way to turn it from just a chore into an opportunity to actually grow your business with. So am I here, Ari?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, because my screen popped in a funny way. Okay, so can you see my screen still? Because it doesn't look
Oh,
like it's.
I don't,
Uh,
I don't see the screen.
okay, let's see. Try again. And in a worst case scenario, Ari, I might have to send you the presentation. And
Now
if
it's
it,
starting sharing screen. There it is.
so what do we do at Plan Notice? Plan Notice, we streamline retirement communications by automating notice delivery and transforming them into engaging videos. That's the part that we're going to talk about more today. But overall, what we want to do is we want to address the Department of Labor's best practices regarding sending out notices and communication, and doing it in a way that we actually try to prevent missing participants from ever occurring. And then on top of that, we want to make notices something that people actually look forward to, as opposed to throwing them away, which is what I think is what's happening. I'll give you a small antidote. My business partner and I, Brian Danos, uh, went to we went to the SHRM conference a year ago. It was here in New Orleans. And as HR managers, CFOs, and directors of benefits came through at the SHRM conference, we polled them all and asked them how many of them had actually read their notices. And we basically, about 1 in 1,000 actually said they read their notices from start to finish. And these are the people who are asked the questions about their notices within the company. So if they're not reading their notices, I think we all know for a fact that the majority of our participants are not reading their notices. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that A, they get them, and B, they understand them. So that's our goal. So just to recap a little bit on what the core product of Plan Notice is we develop customized workflows to ensure that the notices get to the participant. So our traditional workflow is we take over all of the noticing responsibility for the company, and we make sure that they are not only sent, but that they are validated as delivered and that they are validated as received. So what does that mean? It means that we send all of our notices by email, by text message, and by first class mail. And when an email goes out, we have proof that it was sent. We have proof that it didn't bounce back. And then as soon as the participant actually opens and reads the notices, we have validation that they have opened and read it. On a text message, we have the proof that it was sent, that it didn't bounce back, and we know when they opened the text message and it went into the notice. And on first class mail, we track through the USPS that it was sent, that it was deliverable, and we have a QR code on every one of our notices that asks the participant to validate their receipt. So by doing that, we actually have what the Department of Labor has asked for, which is proof that the notice actually got delivered, as opposed to was sent and we hope it was delivered. What we also do is on most of our plans on terminated employees with a balance, if we don't get validation of receipt, we immediately move them into a bucket of considered a missing participant. We take that missing participant bucket and we follow the Department of Labor best practices. So we skip trace them to find their best location. We send them out new email. We have a call center that reaches out, digitally records all their calls to validate that they actually received the notice. If we don't get them through the call center, we send by social media and we digitally record those messages. If we don't get them by social media, we send by certified mail. In the rare cases we can't track somebody through that process, we start the whole process again and do it through a beneficiary search. So everything we do is digitally logged, and we have a full audit log that can be provided in the case there was ever litigation or the Department of Labor ever came to ask. And that log shows every notice that was sent to every participant, and it shows when it got received or when we located the participant. We believe that that is the ultimate level of compliance regarding participants. And we also believe that that helps to avoid ever having an ongoing missing participant situation where somebody hasn't been contacted for years and all of a sudden you realize the mail has been bounced back and you need to find them. So that's our core service. But what we've also learned and started to do is that based on this fact that very few people actually listen to or actually read the notices, we felt it was important to help people understand why they were getting notices. So what we've done is that for our clients that utilize Plan Notice, we've added the extra feature of taking the actual notice. And this isn't just a general overview of the notice, it's the specific notice. And we summarize that notice using proprietary technology. We create that summary and we convert it into a video using an avatar. So that allows us to do it efficiently. To prove that point, when we did our annual notice this year, and we're currently servicing about 1,500 plans and about 150,000 participants, we were able to produce videos for over 1,000 of the plans. The ones that we didn't produce videos for didn't elect that service. So here's an example of what that video process looks like to help improve the engagement of participation through notices. Ari, did it switch over? I think it went into the website, didn't it? So that you can now see.
Right now I see the website.
Perfect.
Demo.
So this is an example of an American Trust notice. And when our notices go out by email or text message, what you'll see is the complete notice is attached. So we're not avoiding showing them all the details of the notice. That's all included. But what we do is we take the notice and again create a summary. So here's an example, and we'll see if the video plays and if you can hear it. If not, I'll send you links to everything.
Hi, my name is Alex. Today, I will highlight several important topics regarding your company's retirement plan from the annual notice below.
Ari, can you hear it?
I heard it. It was a little
Okay,
muffled,
good.
but I still heard it.
I'll keep playing it.
Concepts such as safe harbor contributions and qualified default investment alternatives. But don't worry, I'll explain what these terms mean and why they're important to you. Let's start with your contributions. Elected deferrals are the amounts you contribute from your paycheck before taxes, which are then placed into your retirement. The plan allows you to adjust your savings amount at regular intervals or stop your deferrals at any time. For those over 50, there's the additional benefit of catch-up contributions, allowing you to safe harbor contributions that funds your employer adds to your retirement plan based on a set percentage of your compensation. These contributions supplement your own savings, enhancing the overall growth of your retirement fund. This additional financial input from your employer is a key advantage in building your long-term financial security. When you're ready to withdraw funds, call the distribution, and provides options. You can access your savings if you need the company for each retirement or under certain other conditions. Regarding contribution investment, you have the option to choose from if you do not make this selection,
That's a little muffled.
be selected for you.
Okay, but basically you get the gist of everything, which is when we create these videos, they are specific to the notice. So they walk through, if it is a safe harbor plan, it describes the safe harbor. If there's a, whatever the QDIA is described as what the QDIA is. And by doing that, what we found as we've sent these and we've been able to track the open rate and the involvement in the video, we're seeing that we're getting a huge uptick in participation of actually looking at the notices and understanding it. And my belief, coming from having spent a lot of time on the RIA side of the world, is anytime I can get a participant to understand the plan slightly more, I'm going to have a better opportunity to help that person plan for retirement. And I believe that the lack of education, and we talked about this yesterday with a couple of different speakers, is one of the biggest areas of deficiency within our industry. So these videos, we found that we add a lot more engagement and a lot more support. The second thing that we can do, and I won't play this whole one because if they're getting muffled, you'll lose something with it, but we can also add, we can take a specific situation like an RMD where a participant actually has to fill out a form, and we can create a video that walks the participant through the form to make it easier for them to fill it out and to make sure that they're checking all the boxes. Because we also know, for any of y'all who are, the RIAs on the call or the advisors on the call, we know that incomplete forms just creates an enormous amount of new work. It creates frustration for participants because things get bounced back and forth. And then for our record keeper and TPA partners, it creates frustration from them. So by taking an RMD form, we're able to walk them through and clarify what needs to be filled out in each space. And again, Ari, I'll post these videos, or these links to the videos in the for you to distribute to people. But it walks you through the same way. The full RMD form is underneath, walking you through everything in the RMD, and the avatar will take you through step by step. And last example that I like to show everyone is material modifications, which is an area that I know gets missed a ton of times within a plan. Everybody knows they're going to get their annual notice. Everyone knows that they're going to get their fee disclosures. But in the middle of the year, at some point, a notice pops up and it comes out because there's a fund change that takes place, or there's an adjustment to a provision within the plan. Well, we can do that for those type of situations also. So what we've developed is the opportunity to take, again, those notices where there's a fund change, for example, walk them through what the fund changes are and the reason that the fund change took place, so that people start to understand, why did we eliminate, one set of target date funds to move to another one. And by doing that, again, we can create more engagement at times when an advisor or a plan sponsor doesn't have all of the opportunity to get face-to-face with each participant. So by distributing that, we learn a lot more about the changes that are taking place. So these, again, additional engagement in the plan by utilizing not only proper notice distribution, not only overcoming the missing participant solution, but also adding the video executive summaries to these notices to improve in the understanding of the notices. The other really unique option that we get, because we're doing all of this digitally, and we're using AI, machine learning, and avatars to create it, it also opens us up to being able to do it in multiple languages. So we have multiple plans that have a very high either Spanish population, we have plans with Vietnamese population, we have plans with Mandarin population, and we're able to adjust these videos to make sure that the language is in their native language or their core language, which again is a huge uptick in understanding of what's going on inside of the plan. So that's helped us continue to reshape the noticing piece of the world, and help plans get better engagement. That's the core presentation. Ari, I don't know if there have been any questions or any that we could answer, but we're always available to walk through specific demos and show everybody how it can work for a specific plan or for a group of plans for an advisor or a TPA.
Mike Webb thinks those glasses rock.
Thank you. Glasses are my thing. I have a lot of different pairs of glasses, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, I only have a couple. I only have a couple pair, and there's no way my wife would approve those. I want to go rimless, and we have that fight. She always has to have that. Do you have a sample fee schedule?
So yes, so our fee schedule depends on the circumstance, but our core fee schedule works off of it's $2 per participant per quarter to send our core noticing. If you add the video production, we go to $250 per quarter per participant, so $10 a year per participant. And then for terminated employees that do not validate receipt, who need to be located because they're considered missing participants, we charge $95 to do our location search. That $95 is charged directly to the participant that we're doing the location search for. So that's our core pricing model. And again, there are some plans and circumstances that we price on a customized basis, but the core pricing model is $2 for standard noticing, $250 when you add the video per quarter, and then $95 for the location search on the terminated participants.
Have you seen like a lot of TPAs or trying out your service for all their clients and then just offering it for everybody?
Ari, thank you. That's a great point. What we're finding is that on the TPA side of the world, there's a lot of TPAs that are utilizing us to sort of fit services. We know that more and more TPAs are adding, services to support plans, especially the standalone plans, by offering 5500 review and distribution support. but by adding us, they sort of check the three big boxes: 5,500, distribution, and now noticing. So we TPAs that have signed on, and they offer us a couple of different ways. One is we have a lot of TPAs that offer us on a voluntary basis. So what they'll do is they'll go to all their plans and say, are you sick of sending notices? We have a solution that'll fix it for you. And then we engage directly with the plan to plan. So then it's a voluntary option. The second is that we have a set of TPAs that have implemented. We do it correctly, as opposed to sending it just through a mail house and having to handle all the return mail in hope that you get all the return mail.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, this was like a no-brainer. When I first heard of it, you reached out to me. I thought that this was a fantastic idea. And it's just, speaking of which, I always like the funny stories. Do you ever have like a funny story in terms of like trying to find a participant? Like, did you get like
I don't know.
I once
This is
got a,
probably not a.
I once got a hardship distribution from somebody in jail, and
So I have
realized I
to
could
tell
do-
you, I wish I had a good story for you. I have a positive story, but I don't have a funny story, because I guess we haven't tracked it so closely to know. I do get some really nice letters from people when it's fun. I know that there's an older population that still doesn't fully engage via email or text message, because I'll get a letter back to our PO box that'll say, thank you so much, I thought that money was gone forever. Please get me in contact with the right person. So I get these nice long letters that are written on stationery. It reminds me a lot of a thank you note that you would get. But I think our biggest results that we've seen is twofold when it comes to sending notices. The first is that a lot of people ask me when they're talking to us about, will the plan be feasible? First answer is $2 to $2.50 per participant is at or below what the majority of the record keepers charge to do notice fulfillment if they do it, and we believe we do it way beyond what the record keepers who are doing it do. But the second piece is that they asked me, the $95 sounds pretty steep. And I will tell you, in two years of doing this and now servicing, well over 2,500 plans over the span that we've done it, we have never received a person who calls us angry over a $95 fee, but we have received hundreds and hundreds of people who have reached out to us saying, I never knew there was money still left in that plan. Thank you for finding it. So the $95 is pittance compared to what we're finding for people. The second piece of the puzzle that I'm learning is that when we send out our notices, not only do people find money, but they also get re-engaged with the plan. And these are for both active and terminated employees, who immediately will write back to our notice that says, hey, how do I log in and see more about my account? How do I find out what my balance is? I'm no longer with the company. How do I roll my balance out? All of the things that honestly we want our participants doing. I believe that the reason that that's happening is because when we leave it to the plan sponsor to send out notices, they are either not happening and they're just saying it happened, or they're posting it on a bulletin board, or they're handing it out, in an office. They're not actually actively engaging the employees with a notice. So I believe that by doing it where we're reaching out to every employee in the best way possible that we can, that's where you get a whole lot more engagement and utilization. But that didn't answer your question with a funny story, and I'll keep working on that one for you, Ari.
No, but to answer the funny story, someone asked me about the hardship. It was just the, hardship distribution, I guess, being in jail, and it did qualify as a hardship criteria. But it is. I mean, you get some crazy questions. There was one time where it was the beneficiary killed the participant, and as a woman, was a woman or man, I forgot who was murdered by the beneficiary, and I refused to pay it out. To me, it's the same thing where you have a life insurance policy and somebody, you're the beneficiary and you kill that person. Public policy dictates that you don't recover from that, but that was a decision I made, and the murderer didn't take me up on that by trying to contest it in court because I guess they had other issues to deal with. Thank you, Mike, as always. And
Well,
last,
I appreciate it. And if anybody ever, wants to talk about it, go through Ari, or I'll send him the presentation so that y'all can all watch the videos and learn more about it. Thanks so much.
last but not least is James, who got Shauna's invitation link, so he will be pretending that he's because all of a sudden, like, why is Shauna still on here? Because I know she's in Vegas, and there are better things to do in Vegas than being on this webinar.
There's nothing better to do in Vegas than this. Come on, Ari, who are you kidding?
So we talked. We were Shauna was there, and I was talking to her about people sending, they're trying to sell you, and I remember when we met up, and I always joke about it. It was, we were in this LinkedIn group. We were all talking about transparency, and there was always this one guy. His name was Elmer, I think, right? I don't.
Elmer something. Elmer something. I forget his last name. Yes.
Elmer Glue, and he had nothing. He worked with advisors and getting them jobs or something. I think he got bounced off all these like social platforms.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
would attack us that we were selling fear because we talked about fee transparency and all that kind of stuff. And
Yes.
he called me up one day, and I always say you called me up to make sure I wasn't a maniac. That
Yeah.
I say that because in the relationship business, I'll get that email or whatever from some advisor thinking that I'm going to refer my work, my money to an advisor that I don't know. And if I know hundreds of advisors around the country, I'm not going to hire some guy right off the bat. And there was somebody, it was one of the brokerage houses, reached out to me. And he's like, well, I see you're doing some great things in the legal industry business. So he had no idea what a risk attorney was.
Yeah.
And it was just hilarious. It always reminds me, like, when you're meeting people on social media, you connect with them. It's all built on trust. And, like I said, you have to make sure that they're not maniacs.
You gotta do a little you gotta trust, but you gotta verify a little bit.
One of my favorite lines in Back to School, when Jason Thornton Mellon's son, Jason Mellon, wanted to buy used books, and his reasoning was, they've already been highlighted. And Thornton Mellon said, well, what if they were highlighted by me?
Some lunatic.
James, take it away, because you end the well, I'll say.
Yeah, I was about to say, I hate
the last presentation.
The go-between between this and everybody's weekend. So appreciate the timing.
The funny thing about last is when we do the live events, usually I think I'm last now when I do it. And the reason was you were there at Citi Field. And of course, Doc Gooden was the guest, and my buddy Larry was telling everybody, oh, Doc Gooden's here. And Dan Venturi had the last presentation, and like half the audience left. So better now, you're not in between lunch and the athlete. So
and the athlete this time, yes. And I for those who a quick commercial, and I'm sure she'll it's too modest to say so, but I did miss Shauna's presentation. But full disclosure, Shauna handles all of our content and marketing. So any advisors on here who have not taken the time to catch up with her, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and do that. Ari, do you have the presentation, or do I need to pull it up?
I don't have it. I mean, I could pull it up, but
No, hang on a sec. Give me a second. And you can give me I can get capability to share, right? So as long as you share the screen, then I should be good. Hang on a second. Right. Wait a second. Let's go back. And share my screen here, right? And let's and all right, can you see it now?
I can't see anything right now because I just pulled up your screen on my thing and I can't see anything right now. Hold on.
All right, hang on a sec. It says I'm sharing.
And you are sharing, yes.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
All right, now you see. All right. So again, for those who don't know, my name is James Solomon with Millennium Investment and Retirement Advisors. good friend of ours, but we've done a lot of work together in the 401k space, which he just shared with you a little while ago. This is our sole focus. We're an RIA. We don't do anything else. We don't do any wealth management. A bit unique because about 95% of our business comes from outside advisors who are looking for help in some fiduciary capacity that they can't do or don't want to do. Been in the business about 30 years, and one of the things that actually Sean and I were discussing fairly recently was this big push for content and videos and podcasts and all that good stuff, which is all worthwhile. And I'm not here to diminish that in any capacity. It's all important, and it's obviously what you feel most comfortable with. But one of the things the advisor is missing is, again, sometimes we make things more complicated than they need to be. And a lot of the 401k selling can be done on a very simple, straightforward relationship basis, which Ari talked about. So one of the first things, obviously, is being yourself. One of the reasons that we like Ari, not just as a risk attorney because he's smart, but he is one of the most genuine people you've ever met. And I'm a big fan of you. You know, he lays it all on the table. There is no pretense. So Ari lets you know how he feels about any topic, whether it's ERISA, the Mets, or anything else. And I think that's super important because, again, people like to work with folks that they can feel comfortable with, but also who feel comfortable with themselves. So one of the key things here is finding your voice and your message and just making sure that it comes across as, you know, as who you are, not what you're trying to sell. So target audiences, we get asked all the time, you know, if I'm getting in the space, what you know, do I just do small plans? Do I try to go for the big plans? We are firm believers in obviously going after anything you feel comfortable with. So the bigger plans have the same problems as the smaller plans. They just have more folks involved, probably a few more hoops to jump through and a little more politics, but again, could obviously be very worthwhile because of the opportunity to obviously make a greater revenue, but also get in front of more people as well. Folks always ask, you know, why bother in the small plan space? We've always told the advisors we work with, we don't have any minimums. We do startups up to plans with you know, thousands of employees, and we've always stuck to the fact that I can't say call me when you find a 1,000-person, you know, $50 plan, but I'm not going to help you when you're helping your friend who has a new business open the plan. Also important is if you're there from the beginning and help them get started, that helps build up that stickiness to when the plan does grow, they're less apt to move because you were there to help them when things got started. So don't shy away. Startup plans now with the increase tax credit, there's an opportunity to build in a little fee for yourself as well for your time there. So it's not just you know, a lost leader into something down the road. ERISA is a team sport. Anyone in this industry who thinks they can do everything by themselves is going to be short-lived for this industry. One of the things that we see quite often, and I know we've done some roundtables and things like that, but the opportunity to work with people like Ari, people like Shauna, people like Mike Webb, other folks who've been in the industry for a while who can share their experience and expertise. And that's what's important. It also makes the plan sponsor, client feel much more comfortable because you can't be all things to all people. Get good at something, stay in your lane, and then surround yourself with qualified people who can help protect that relationship and enhance it. People always ask, you know, why would I bring in other folks who do the same thing or something that might be similar? Trust me, clients, they see it. They appreciate the fact that you're comfortable enough in bringing other people who can bring a different type of skill set or expertise to the. So again, in order to compete in this space, you're going to need that bench to turn to. There's a lot of complex issues going on. So don't be afraid to bring in other folks who have the experience within the industry. What are you selling? Again, people always, this is another one of my little pet peeves. I know everyone, you see a lot on LinkedIn about fiduciaries and processes. And guess what? I don't care what you do, whether you're a teacher or anything else, you're selling. You're selling yourself to get people to learn. So don't be ashamed of selling something, as long as you're bringing a value. If you're going to make it transactional and just push product, then you're going to find yourself in a little bit of trouble. But if you look at it from a solution perspective, somebody has a problem, okay? Costs are out of control. Liability is something they're concerned about. The workload of running a plan, all of these things you can help sell solutions to, which obviously helps solidify that relationship, and then therefore make that opportunity stronger for you to hold on to and then to grow from. So again, it's nothing wrong with it, as long as you don't look at it from a transactional perspective, because then there, obviously, you're going to find yourself worried about. I hear people all the time, well, somebody came in and they were 5 basis points cheaper, so we lost the business. Again, that's a customer, not a client. And customers buy and sell things on cost. Clients appreciate the value. So as long as you can show them the value on a consistent basis and doing everything you can to protect them, you have a much greater chance of holding on to that relationship. What else are you doing? A lot of our advisors, again, work on the participant outcomes, helping people relieve their financial stress and also any other type of issues, and then helping them get to their retirement goals. We don't do any participant education. Our job is to work at the plan sponsor level for the plan sponsors who hire us and the advisors who bring us in. And then we allow the advisors to focus on what they do best, which is that financial planning, debt consolidation, college savings, life planning, exit, succession planning, those type of things. That's the focus, and that's where, again, a lot of the advisors are finding the true success within the space, because they've outsourced the other aspects of being an advisor on the plan, which also makes their business more profitable. Why do you get into the business? Again, very rarely do you have the opportunity where you can, control your own income. Okay, you can be as successful as you forced yourself to be. And obviously, there's unlimited aspect when it comes to income, but you also get to make a difference in participants' lives. There's a lot of people here who are not on the right path to retirement readiness or any type of financial security. So having the ability to control your own income, but also make and helping people get to where they need to be in forms of whether it's stability or growth or any of those things is a very unique thing. So that's a very important why I believe a lot of folks get into working in the 401k space and can truly make a difference. The ABCs, we try to keep things simple. It is not about closing. I never liked the word. Doesn't make any sense. It's an ending. Why do you want to end anything? We're trying to develop relationships that run for a long time. So you always want to be consulting, because you want to make sure you're providing value and you're adapting and growing with the client. So you want to make sure that, again, you're always being consistent, which we're going to get into in a little bit as well, because that's how you not only protect yourself, but also the other folks that you're working with regards to different aspects of the plan. It's a numbers game. There's no other way about it. Okay, this is the more crap you throw at the wall, the better chance you have things to stick. The more prospects that you put in the funnel, the quicker you're going to be able to squeeze something out the bottom. Okay, I can't tell you how many times I hear, well, I made 50 phone calls and I've done 3 seminars and I've done 8 webinars. No, this is constantly moving and adding to it. This is a high volume business. So you got to take the no and the maybe and move on and find the next prospect who's going to be engaged. It's not fun in some cases. We get that. But the idea of if you do it consistently and you maintain that funnel at 3/4 or full, trust me, you're going to find plenty that comes out the bottom. It's just a matter of keeping yourself focused and moving forward. Consistency is also the key. One of the things that we try to hammer home to all the advisor partners that we work with, we only have one message. That's it. It never changes. Every meeting we do, it's the same thing. I can share 1,000 stories of, hey, James, this is the 4th time you're here, and it's the same thing. And guess what? If you invite me back for a 5th, it's going to be the same thing, because we believe in the message and the process and the program we've put in place. And if you're changing, then all you're trying to do is one up somebody and try and find some shortcut into getting into a relationship. And guess what? You do that, down the road, somebody's going to do it to you. Be consistent. Find the message, deliver it, and say, this is why we're better. This is why we know your employees are going to end up better. This is how you're going to be better protected. So one of the things, again, like I said, we hammer home the fact that it is just, this is the only message that we deliver, and you don't have to believe it, and that's fine, and we'll move on to the next prospect. But should we be invited back, we're gonna hammer home the points that we made in the first meeting, because that's how much we believe in them. For the Seinfeld fans in the group, obviously Dripping leaves something of value behind in terms of some information that they haven't had before, or some unique approach to how you're going to be different to help them, because that's what's going to encourage them to come up with a reason to have you back for that 2nd or 3rd meeting. This is not a one closed business. Yes, on occasion do you get that opportunity because you fell into a right situation. This is a 5 to 7 touch business. The vast majority of advisors quit after 2. So do the Costanza, stay steadfast in what you're doing.
Must be like Costanza, like the Menon. That was part of it. The Menon commercial.
Exactly.
Why Menon? Why Costanza?
And why they want to have you back. These are the only 2 things that you need in 401k selling, because persistence is going to get you above everything. Calvin Coolidge said it the best, so I won't even bother. I hand out probably somewhere between 100 to 200 copies of Green Eggs and Ham on an annual basis to advisors that we work with. Well, I was the 2nd Edward Jones advisor in the state of New York 2 lifetimes ago, when they used to have the annual meetings back at the home office. Ted Jones actually was still alive at the time. They had a guy from Paducah, Kentucky, and I went to school with a friend from Paducah, Kentucky. And for those who are not familiar, it is the population is probably a little bigger than the attendance of our webinar today. And he was one of the most successful Edward Jones advisors in the space. I was barely in my 20s, so I sought him out right away. And I'm like, listen, I got to know what the secret is. I live 40 miles from Manhattan and about 10 million people, and you live with about 1,000 people, and you're killing it. What do I need to do? And he handed me the book, and he told me to go back to the hotel and read it. I did, came back the next day, and I'm like, all right, what's the answer? And so this went on for about 3 days of the program, going back and forth. Went back the 4th day, and I said 79. And he said, that's your answer. And for those who don't know, Sam gets rejected 79 times in Green Eggs and Ham before he gets him to try it. So the idea, again, tying into the Calvin Coolidge saying, is this is all about persistency, believing in yourself and following through. And that is going to win you far more business than anything else you bring to the table. So it is a numbers game, and it is a marathon, not a sprint. So again, I encourage anyone who is looking to get in the space and or grow it, find that team, find that message, and just be consistent, and don't let up. And like I said, you will find yourself in a much better position as long as you're willing to put in the time and effort. So that's all I got. All right, I wanted to hit again some of the key points. Obviously open to any questions, criticisms, comments, or anything else.
Criticisms. That's only what I get.
But appreciate the time. Appreciate the
You
time.
post an article about payroll provider, and it'd be like somebody from one of the payroll providers.
Honest.
The one thing I talked about opinions, whatever. So the payroll provider article is always, well read at anything I write. And my favorite was I got a plan sponsor who got one of those articles from probably an advisor or TPA who's, you're doing it wrong. And the guy got so defensive, he starts emailing me like he wants to have a debate with me. And I'm like, I got no time for this. Listen, if that's
Yeah.
your opinion and you think your plan's in good shape, well, how am I going to debate you out of it?
Yes, exactly.
Like, I never understand, like, when people like on Twitter, whatever, they get into this, fighting about politics. You're not going to convince anybody of anything.
No. And,
But,
and there are what, 700,000 retirement plans. Move on to the next one. You'll find someone who
And it was insisted that I should have a debate
conversation.
with him. I'm like, listen, this isn't point counterpoint, whatever it is. So, James, always appreciate you and the introduction to Shauna. She's always a great addition to these things, and
Yes.
we'll see you soon at one of these things. And speaking of one of these things, we'll be in Arlington, Texas on Friday, May 3rd. Game is May 2nd, I think, against the Washington Nationals. We will also be June 7th at Yankee Stadium. The game will be Yankees against the Dodgers. Go to that 4ksite.com. Sign up, $100 to attend. We'll see how we're going to do with the tickets, because I don't want to be Yankee tickets are a lot more expensive than Cleveland Guardian tickets. So I have like a wad of Yankee Stadium tickets. It's I could go bankrupt for people who don't want to be part of it. So anyway, go to that 4ksite.com. Thank you for everybody attending. We will be back next year, usually that last weekend, and Thursday, Friday in January. I just haven't gone and seen what the dates are yet for 2025, which I can't believe. I remember what was 99 and all that stuff. So I appreciate everybody attending. And so, as Dick Clark would say, so long.
You have a good one, Ari. Thanks.